Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War new faction of the Hellgate, some teams for its strategy, and all of that. So let's get into that. As far as the faction itself, it is a brown-red faction associated to Maugrim Woods. As far as treasure rooms, the only guaranteed treasure room is this one all the way in the bottom right over here. Every other room is basically percent chance on if it would or would not be. Basically, the way that you do this is go from the 1 to the 4 to the 5. Then you take all of the non-treasure rooms in the little outer circle here, and then do whatever ones are the treasure rooms. Despite these other rooms not being a guaranteed treasure room, these side ones do have the chance of being one. Like, for example, this one is one, as you can see. However, the only one that's 100% guaranteed is the one all the way in the bottom right. So basically, just go down this path, take all the non-treasure room ones, take all the treasure room ones, and then go straight for the balls. And of course, if you just wanted to do the rush method, you just simply go straight from the 1, the 4, the 5, and then straight to the balls. You do unfortunately have to pass through a 4 and a 5, so this 5 will sometimes have a really annoying effect. This one pretty much does nothing since they pretty much already have Undying, so that's a lucky one to get. However, there are some really annoying ones that can be found. They're most annoyingly probably being Submerge, especially if you're doing Pure Faction, so do watch out for that when it comes to this delve. Anyways, as far as the troops, it actually comes with some pretty useful troops, mostly soul farming as far as what they're capable of doing. If we go over to Hellgate over here, we can see all 4 of them. The 2 most noteworthy ones that you're actually going to be using outside of the faction, as well as for Pure Faction, is the Judge of the Dead. This is pretty noteworthy because it's basically Phoenicia with soul gain. It deals damage to all enemies and it's boosted by souls at a 2-to-1 ratio, so even with base souls with no increase, that has a potential of doing 20 additional damage. And obviously this could be made way higher by using something like a Ferris Ra or Necromancy on your team, which will substantially increase the amount of damage this thing could potentially do, since the more souls you have, the more damage this will be able to do. Also particularly good earlier on in the game, since soul cap can only go so high, the earlier that you do that in, the more damage that it does relative to the things that you are facing. So it can be pretty good for like early to mid game PvP as well if you want to pick this up, especially if you already own something like a Ferris Ra, making Ferris Ra even more noteworthy to go get early on. And don't forget, so Ferris Ra is still in Soulforge this week for today and tomorrow, so still a little bit of time to get if you want to get it for Soulforge. Anyways, as far as his perks, there's really only one really noteworthy one, and that's the fact that he gains 3 whenever an ally casts a spell. This is particularly noteworthy for the Pure faction, as this will allow you to gain a lot of souls by himself whenever you're doing the Pure faction for him, when you have like 3 or 4 of him within your team. However, it can be a little bit useful even outside of it because it gives us a little bit of souls. Though if you're using something like Phylactery or some other similar method, you're likely just going to be hitting max souls anyways. But if you are using a composition that is more PvP based, that might not necessarily have the capability of immediately reaching max souls, this will definitely help you reach it so that you can utilize its higher amount of damage, which is pretty nice. And aside from that, we have Coronis, which is basically just a cheaper version of Dragon Soul. Dragon Soul is still better to use in almost every situation if you have Dragon Soul. However, if you're still at the point in the game where you do not have Dragon Soul, this is a pretty good pickup. It gains 1 soul for every single purple gem on the board, and then explodes all the purple gems. So if there's about 10 purple gems, not only did you get 10 explosions, but you also got yourself 10 souls. It also is not affected by magic, so even if he's magic reduced by web or something similar, he will still be able to do his full amount of explosions, since it's always based on the total amount of purple on the board. Though because of that, if the enemy does deny all the purple on the board, he will do pretty much nothing with his ability. Actually, literally nothing if there are 0 purples on the board. One other nice thing about him is he does actually have a necromancy attached to him, so he does get that little bit of 50% soul gain, making your 40 base go all the way up to a 60. So this will be pretty helpful, of course, with things that have boost ratio, or simply just for accumulating a little bit more souls. But yeah, it's basically a Dragon Soul alternative that is a little bit more restricted, that doesn't have any damage, but has a 3 lower mana cost to make up for it. Overall, you're probably still going to be using Dragon Soul. However, this is a great alternative for if you don't have it, or if the team really specifically just needs the lower mana cost on him, or specifically needs that necromancy a little bit more than the little bit of better damage that it has. But overall, 2 really good options. The other 2 are basically useless and will never be used. Anyways, aside from that, let's go into the other thing. We do, of course, have a new weapon from the faction, and it's actually noteworthy for once because it's not horrible, as are a good majority of the faction weapons. But this deals damage to an enemy, boosted by souls. You might notice a 1-to-1 boost ratio, which basically makes this Ferris Ra. Ferrous Raw actually does less damage in this weapon, oddly enough, for 10 higher mana costs. The main thing about Ferrous Raw, though, is he does gain 20 souls, whereas this thing only gains 4 souls once you get it upgraded, because he gets it from one of the perks over here, a 4 soul gain, if whatever cycle, there it is. It only gains 4 souls instead of Ferrous Raw's 20 souls. It also doesn't have a yellow to purple convert, which obviously wouldn't even be useful for it, but it doesn't have any way to really touch the board, whereas Ferrous Raw does have the potential of gaining a lot of its mana back, and even reaching all the way to max if it gets really lucky with a good convert. But it doesn't have that aspect, but it makes up for that with a whole 10 higher or lower mana cost. So you'll be able to spam this quite a bit more. Of course, there isn't any natural soul gain on any of the hero classes. Well, Necromancer has a soul gain, but it doesn't like raise your soul cap. No hero class currently has that. Could change in the future, but that's the one big downside to it compared to something like Ferrous Raw, which would increase your soul cap by 150%. So overall, this can be used. If it is going to be used, oddly enough, you generally use it with Ferrous Raw because the amount of damage increase that you end up getting from it. But yeah, it's basically a quick cast Ferrous Raw. That's essentially what it is, and you can end up getting a lot of damage with one single Ferrous Raw. That is 100 additional damage. You're already going to be hitting for, yeah, like almost 150. So they can definitely stack up damage pretty quickly, similar to how Ferrous Raw does. And you kind of just feed a bunch of brown into it, and pretty much be good to go. Overall, definitely not the best delve weapon in the game. You definitely want to focus more on like life and death. Even Jar of Eyes in most situations is probably still better, but it's a great alternative and definitely something that can be put into soul farming teams now that there are even more options, basically 3 more, that can be put into various soul builds. Anyways, aside from that, let's go over a bunch of teams that you can use. These are personally everything that I ended up using this time around, though I will explain a couple other alternatives since it does use slightly more expensive stuff. So right here for the very first team, we ended up going with a pretty standard guards avatar into Surquet and Hadley. It's basically the same thing as Rowan Leprechaun, with the main difference being that it allows you to cover different colors, and since the restriction is brown-red, it allows us to do this. So we just do it with any of the green-blue weapons, or any of them that doesn't block this, so that we get a little bit of mana accumulation. Guards avatar just does its one shot, and we pretty much go from there. Surquet and Hadley gives a half mana start and can be used for cleanup with its double poke and skull spam, and you basically just use this for a nice convert at the beginning in order to mana feed into full mana to immediately cast. Biggest alternative that you can end up doing if you need a low-level thing is just run double gargle, run like double gargle with Gimlet or something, or triple gargle into Slicer weapon, Stone Slicer, and you'll pretty much be good to go. And it's nice and cheap. As far as the next one, we can go a double Tesla. You can do a mana accumulation weapon in first slot, or just simply use our Scale Shield. A couple different mana generators you could do for your Empower, but in this particular instance, we just went for Scurvy Sea Dog since it has Empower into blue, while also having a gold gain, so you get to gain a little bit of gold as well. If you don't have a second Tesla, you can replace it with another mana accumulation option, either another Power or pretty much just anything to go get a bunch, like Marilith or something, and you'll pretty much be good to go. But you do need at least one Tesla to just kind of hold the line, so you have the boost ratio from her ability in order to do a lot of damage, and that can run literally the entire thing from 20 to 500 if you so choose. However, by about 200, we did, of course, switch as you normally would, because you have access to Iron Gut Zugoff for this delve. Of course, Iron Gut Zugoff being the strongest combo that you can use for any delve, and that still stands. This particular one uses a Reflection of Good in order to protect the Hiking Iron Gut, and of course, Marilith, as I mentioned earlier, just for some mana accumulation. A couple different options you could use here, Harpy Mage, Marilith, stuff like that, but we just went down the Marilith route, and works out pretty well. And you just basically spam that out, get the Marilith or Reflection of Good as quickly as possible. You just have all the mana you need, and then you just keep spamming Hiking Iron Gut into Zugoff, and then you just end up winning. Pretty straightforward as it normally is. Oh yeah, if you don't have Zugoff, you could just replace it out for another mana accumulation, though you might want to move the Hiking Iron Gut to a slightly safer location, because if he does end up dying, that's kind of the only thing you have, whereas if we lose a Hiking Iron Gut, which generally wouldn't happen, but if we happen to lose Hiking Iron Gut in this build, we still have Zugoff to easily win the rest of the faction, so it's not as big a deal. But if you're running Hiking Iron Gut as your only option, you're going to need to replace this out for like a curse or something. Pretty good alternative is Mirage Queen. It's not going to give 50% mana start to anything on this team, but it does have a green to Doomskull convert, and will also 4 times curse consistently the entire enemy team, so you don't need to worry about a random curse hitting the right target. It will just automatically hit everything, so it's no way you could possibly miss. Anyways, as far as pure factions, there's basically 2 ways that you can run this. Either go 4 times Judge of the Dead, which at this point I'm kind of just convinced is what we're just going to do, or 3 Judge of the Dead, or 2 Judge of the Dead with 1 or 2 of the Mana Accumulator Exploder. Main reason why we're spamming the Judge of the Dead is mostly because he kind of has soul gain on himself already. So with 4 of them on your team, after you cast every single one once, you will have enough souls to reach the 40 cap, which means it'll be hitting for its max amount of damage, which with all the delve bonuses will probably be over like 120 or so. Depends how many potion effects you have. So he's going to be hitting pretty heftily already, so It's mostly just to help him out with a little bit more damage. This delve also has no tank, so using a non-tank in first slot isn't really too big a deal because not a single one of the 4 actually have tanking capability. The only thing you're going to have are the natural potions, like the 25% skull reduction potion and the barrier potion. But aside from that, the standard ones, you don't have anything that has any additional skull dodge or skull reduction. There's one with like magic reduction, but that's not really going to be that useful since generally your first slot wants to have skull reduction, and magic reduction will not really help it much. But yeah, that's pretty much the game plan. You can put Exploder in there if you feel like it'll work out better, but I'm pretty sure just spamming Judge of the Dead due to enchant will probably be fine. Just start with a 20% mana start into 8 magic, let the enchant get them up, get your first cast out, spam the other 3 when they're ready, and by that point you've pretty much killed out most of the battles except for probably the final battle, in which case you'll have at least like 3 of them left and you can just kind of tank it out and just kill them that way. And while it's not the easiest faction out there, it should still be pretty doable. It'll kind of remind me of like the Marilith faction or something similar where you just spam like 4 times of it, except it doesn't have any loop potential, so that's a little bit of a hindrance, but it can still end up getting the job done. But anyways, guys, that will do it for the Hellgate faction. If you still have any other questions about it, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. We will be doing pure faction for it tonight in about 6 hours or so from now. Hopefully the video will be up then, but at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we do every single night. So I'll be going over that and doing our normal stuff. Hopefully pure faction won't be too bad to us, but should be pretty straightforward. He has a lot of damage, so should work out. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye, everyone, and best of luck with the faction.